In our harmonic universe, we have all the potential for magnificent creations. By coming into awareness of this new perspective about life, death, life after death, life without death, transharmonic ascension, other worlds, other dimensions, other non-terrestrial beings of both matter and non-physical presence, for me something changed. The me I used to know has gone. I am a better version of myself, and I'm in the state of becoming an even better version of myself. I choose life, I choose freedom, I choose love, compassion, and creation. I had no idea that in time I would be going in this direction, but I went along for the ride. I allowed myself the chance to experience something else, something more. You can't play on broken strings, so it's time to divert energy into mending our broken instruments. We can step into our full power, and there the stage lights shine down upon us as we put our best selves forward, making wonderful harmonic waves of creation for the benefit of ourselves and all life in beautiful harmonic universe of sound and light, dreaming a better world into being. In a world of such disharmony and lower dimensional conscious energy, how do we really culture a change for the better for everyone? There really is only one place to start, and that is at home. We must come into harmony with our own selves first. This means accepting ourselves fully and completely, unconditionally first. We recognize our own unconscious behaviors and subconscious patterns. We then create new ways, new habits or disciplines, conscious intentions that support our objectives. When we interact with others whom we observe to have unconscious behaviors, we accept them unconditionally. If we do not wish to experience such behaviors and the effects of them, we set our boundaries, and we have enough self-respect not to allow unconscious behaviors which may harm us physically, emotionally, or psychologically from others, either by physically moving ourselves out of that reality, or by being strong enough to assert our will and desires about how we are treated without inflicting any unconscious actions upon others by losing our center, our balance. All is contract, and contract forms the basis of good relations. It serves to come to an agreement about what is acceptable for people concerned. What will you agree to tolerate? Recognize and acknowledge your own shadow self. This would commonly be described in psychological circles as the ego. Wherever you are acting from anything other than an unconditionally loving response to your environment or people, you would be considered to be acting out of your ego. Most of our unconscious patterns, which we live out almost our entire lives based upon, are formed within the very early formative years in childhood. As a child, the ego makes conclusions about itself based on the experiences it has, and stores this information as a truth about how the world is. Then we grow up with these perceptions of reality, and it influences how we interact with the wider world. We then create experiences based on these misinformed subconscious conclusions about how the world is, and draw to us the necessary lessons by the law of attraction. But these lessons largely go by unnoticed, and we continue to create the same experiences with different scenarios until we choose to change that behavioral pattern. Holistic healing practices are a very practical solution to bring healing to psychological, emotional, or even physical issues that are formed in the formative stages of development that we live out unconsciously. The primary issue in holistic practices is to get to the root of what brings the feelings of unease to you. Most disease, seen from the higher perspective, comes to us as a physical ailment because it is the last avenue that the consciousness has to alleviate the trauma, which it has been unable to resolve at the psychological or emotional levels of being, probably due to emotions being denied or bottled up, or issues being pushed to the back of the mind and ignored. If the body has no release for these traumas, it will create a physical response to flag up the issue so that it can be resolved. Sadly, the way of the world tends to deal with disease by chopping the bit off or cutting it out or numbing the body's signals to the consciousness through drugs. None of this necessarily addresses the full issue. It simply more likely denies it, and the root issue is left undiscovered. The Kabbalion teaches that all is one, and one is the all. This would perhaps be better explained by the concept of the holographic reality mentioned earlier. A hologram holds the whole image within itself. The whole image can be retrieved as whole from a fragment. If we apply that thinking to the universal level, we would see that the whole, the entirety of the universe, is made up of its individuated parts, and each individuated part carries the whole universe within itself. This specifically relates to the human being too. In biblical terms of reference, man was God's prized creation. Man was created in the image of God. If God source is a creator by nature, then woman or man in that same image is a creator too. He or she has the intrinsic capacity to create at will whatever he or she so chooses. We had better then create something of worth, something healthy. The Dalai Lama of the Buddhist faith says, if you can't be good to the people you meet today, at least try not to cause them any harm. There is a greater advantage to achieving this stance, because where you cause harm to another, you are indeed harming your own self too. The Jesus character of the Bible text depicts a man who was crucified by the Roman occupying forces in that region at the time. This event may or may not have happened, but taken symbolically, this event represents the crucifying of you, your own power. The DNA, which was distorted from its original blueprint, carries a number of defects, which means the full range of dimensional perception cannot be reached by the human with an impaired DNA code. The DNA must be repaired by the individual to be able to move to a higher consciousness. At this lower level of consciousness, we experience what is referred to as duality. Duality is a level of consciousness which perceives separateness as the current state of being. It is focused on the polarities of being, such as the masculine and feminine, black and white, dark and light, you and me, good and evil. Opposing forces are dualistic. The game of chess very beautifully describes our current state of consciousness. The good versus evil war drama, all played out on a checkerboard floor. Note the Masonic symbolism in their temples and other aspects of life. One player has an army of material pieces which he pitches and maneuvers against his opponent's army in many mini-battles within the greater war to successfully win material from his opponent, giving himself the upper hand and ultimately resulting in him winning the game by becoming all-powerful by backing the opponent's king into an immovable position, resulting in his resignation or death. The lowest value pieces on the board, of which there are many at the start of the game, 8 per player, are the pawns. Each individual pawn is able to make its way across the chessboard to the furthest rank away from its starting place, which is a perilous journey, pitching against more powerful pieces on the board, but once its journey is complete, by reaching the 8th rank on the opponent's home territory, it becomes a queen, a sovereign in its own right. The pawn is exchanged for another queen and has the full maneuverability and power of the original queen. As you can see, the parallels between chess and our own reality are significant. This game was invented hundreds of years ago. The same voice is giving the same message through individuals whose creativity brings forward into this realm the message which wants to be realized, seen with real eyes. It wants to be recognized or recognized. It wants you to become aware of it, of the greater reality, but it is your free will choice within this reality not to see, not to recognize, not to realize, and not to turn about and see this wider vista around you. No one can intrude upon that free will from the external dimensions unless you grant your permission to do so. Earth is a free will zone, and the extremes of free will have been allowed to be tested here throughout history. Now, it is fair to say that you have been completely oblivious to any and all of this whilst incarnated, except perhaps for a sneaking suspicion which lies within you. Your own knowing, your own innate intuitive ability to discern the truth. Let me guess, you loved Star Wars, another polarity drama, using the archetypes of good, evil, light, dark, and black and white. The biblical idea that we have something to atone or make amends for, some penance to pay to be worthy of being accepted into the heavens, is nothing more than being at one with all, At-one-ment is being at peace with yourself and all things. To be reconciled is to be okay with you yourself as you are, and with everyone else as they are, unconditionally. This is the perspective of a God. It unconditionally loves. It loves you as you. It gives you an infinite number of chances to reconcile yourself with your higher self and to come back to the source healed. Through forgiveness of the self, we can forgive all others, healing the shadow part of our consciousness, which keeps us separated from experiencing wholeness, holiness, or at-one-ment. Accepting oneness as your new way of being aligns you with the God perspective and reconciles you to the whole and holistic way. You enter awareness of your higher self and begin to choose from that higher perspective, which benefits all beings. So I've spoken before about the two systems running side by side, or duality, the natural and the artificial, and we see evidence of this in the law system expressed in the physical plane, the law and the legal. But as we know, what is present in our reality is a reflection of the higher realities too. From the higher perspective, the artificial system is that which has been created by beings choosing to go against the natural laws, the natural way, and is the negative expression of the polarity perspective. Largely what we have experienced on planet Earth to date, in the way this drama has unfolded, is the negative expression of the polarity of the species. The species has been manipulated by higher dimensional beings for their own self-centered reasons. There are many other interdimensional beings who are actively assisting humanity to be able to come to its realization and its connection to the source energy, and to disconnect from the negative agenda permanently. All it takes is for you to recognize who you are and to take the necessary steps forward to freedom. Much assistance has been given to us from our interdimensional community to enable us to come to our awakening. Awakening for the majority is inevitable, but it is a choice to follow the signs to propel yourself forward. Sovereignty really means to have ultimate supreme power and jurisdiction over one's own self. Let's explore this further. This might also extend to the power a king has over the people he leads. He is the sovereign representative, the sober reign. He has the overarching responsibility for the people who look to his authority and guidance to lead them for the good of all. He takes the rein and steers the chariot, with a sober mind, applying his skill, intellect, and heart for the best outcome he can create as the leader of men and women. He has the willpower and the consent of the people to act freely with intention for the greater good of all. He wears the crown as a symbol of connectedness to the higher consciousness, and he uses that power to direct the collective consciousness effectively. Unfortunately, most of the modern rulers of men are self-serving and intentionally undermining the natural path of the individual. It is our rightful dignity and inheritance as human beings to be kings in our own divine right time, crowned by light, love, and harmonious consciousness. So who am I? I am that I am. I am a witness, a facet of the whole. I am a living, individuated part of the God Source. I am an experiencer, and the Source, through me, can experience itself for its own expansion and gratification, and the expansion of the whole. I am the ego, but we are harmonized, united, and he does not control my being. I am my higher self, but that is not the entirety of my being. I am knowledge and wisdom applied for the best effect of the whole. I am surrendered to what is. I am my will, and direct my will as thy will. I am the masculine and the feminine energies coming into balance, unity and connectedness. I am the pendulum poised at the peak, perfectly balanced and centered in suspension between the polarities. I am the centered. I am the electrical and magnetic forces, the sacred union of energies. I am you and you are me. I am one with all. I am unity consciousness, and in that capacity I serve the whole. Here in this presentation, I have collected and placed some of the pieces of the puzzle together to create a picture for you. This is my experience alone. If you have managed to recognize some of these pieces of the puzzle to make sense within your own picture puzzle, then my efforts and energy have served their intended purpose. If you go on to claim sovereignty and jurisdiction over your own domain and take a positive charge to create balance and harmony between your own polarities, you are on a more sure footing to a better world for all of us. By becoming unified inwardly and outwardly, we emit harmonious energies which all others can benefit from simply by being in your vicinity. I hope this experience has given you foundation for further research, inspiring you to follow your nose and your heart so that you can enjoy the journey of your life and life thereafter in joyful, happy wholesomeness.